Hello everyone, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly. I hope you are well and staying safe. In this video we have 10 of the biggest golf rules myths for you. Now these are all things that golfers do while they're out on the course that either they think they're proceeding under the rules of golf when actually that rule doesn't exist, or in a worst case scenario, they're proceeding under the rules in the wrong way and it can end up costing them penalty shots, something that we all really want to avoid. Now, in this video, I'm joined by Golf Monthly's rules guru, Jeremy Ellwood. He's a qualified rules official and he will explain exactly what you should and shouldn't be doing in all of these different scenarios. Before we begin, guys, if you haven't done already, please do hit the subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss any of our videos. And also, hit the pause button and let us know if you think we've missed any crucial myths that golfers proceed under when it comes to the rules of golf. We would be interested to hear your thoughts. But let's start now by looking at the 10 biggest golf rules myths. Okay, Jess, we're looking at the 10 biggest golf rules myths.
Yeah.
And number 10 on your list is something that happens quite a lot and that certainly people say quite a lot on the golf course, but actually it's not within the rules. What is it?
Well, people will say, I'm just going to declare that one lost, but you can't actually do that. A ball is only lost if you don't find it within the 3-minute search time of getting to the search area. So that is the only time a ball is actually lost. You can say to your playing companions, I don't want to look for that one. Let's just carry on with the other ball. But if one of them decides, for whatever reason, to go and look for it or stumbles across it as you're walking up, that ball isn't lost. You can say, I'm declaring that ball lost as much as you like. But if it's found within 3 minutes, it's still the ball in play.
That's the ball in play. And I guess the situation, I mean, that's going to lead to a fairly frosty atmosphere within the group, isn't it? Might not be staying for, well, certainly you can't stay for a drink after a round of golf at the moment anyway.
No.
But still, it's probably not advisable. But I can imagine the situation where it would happen or potentially could happen is in match play. Let's say you and I were playing against each other and you've hit your ball into an area that I know is particularly nasty. And you say, and you've hit a provisional straight down the middle of the fairway. You say, I'm going to declare my first ball lost. I might think to myself that you would be worse off finding that original ball. And so I would potentially be tempted to try and find it for you. And there's nothing in the rules stopping me from doing that, is there?
There's nothing in the rules. As you say, it might lead to frosty relations. I suppose it's more likely, you often play with people where you say, don't worry about that one. And they're not out of any malice. They just go and look for it anyway out of courtesy. But I think the thing to remember is if you really don't want to risk finding it, simply don't declare the second ball a provisional. So
no.
Then it automatically becomes the ball in play. Of course, the downside then is if your ball has ricocheted back off a tree, say it's on a dog leg, and you actually find it right in the middle of the fairway, if you haven't said provisional, then you wouldn't be able to play the original ball. So it's a choice you have to make, really.
Okay. So number 9 on our list relates to practicing on the golf course. What can you do and what can't you do?
Well, a lot of people, and understandably, think you can't do anything when it comes to practicing during a round. We're talking about during a competitive round here. On the golf course, but there is within the rules a limited amount of practice you can do, and that's restricted to the tee of the next hole you're about to play or the green of the hole you've just played. You can practice your putting and chipping on or around those two areas. What you can't do is practice bunker shots. So you can practice putting and chipping on the green you've just putted out on, the tee of the next hole or around it, as long as you're not holding up play unnecessarily and you don't go into the bunker.
Next one is one that, this came out of a conversation that you and I had about a couple of months ago, where I said to you that anytime I make changes to my scorecard, before handing the card in, I would always initial those changes on the scorecard, but you don't have to do that.
You do not have to do that. And years ago, I worked at the golf club and I was looking after the competitions, and I can remember, to my shame, if you like, disqualifying someone for not doing that when I didn't really know much about the rules.
Right.
Can't really turn the clock back 25 years, but that's how I know that you don't have to do that. You do not have to sign mistakes on the scorecard. You just have to cross them through, make the actual score clearly visible, and that's that. You can't be penalised for signing for a scorecard where the mistakes haven't been initialed.
The next one, Jez, I think the confusion around our next one relates to professional golf. I think a lot of people out there would think they have to play the same model of golf ball all the way through a round, but actually, for most people watching this, that's not going to be the case, is it?
It's not. It's only the case when something called the one ball rule or one ball condition is in force, and that is generally only in professional events or top level amateur events where they do have to play the exact same model of ball throughout. Top level golf, you may have seen people occasionally fall foul of that. I think last year Russell Henley got penalised 8 shots.
Is that right?
He was using just a slightly different Pro V1X model to the one he'd started the round with for 4 holes in the middle of the round. And he got penalised 8 shots, which obviously doesn't do you that much good in professional golf. So
no, that's quite painful, isn't it? You're going to have to go and shoot the lights out the next day to make the cut, well, whatever it is.
But amateurs, club golfers, let's say you can play a Pro V1 on one hole and a Top Flight XL on the next hole, if you so wish. And that also means that you can borrow any ball from someone else if they're willing to lend you one, and it doesn't matter what model it is. So if you got through them at a rate of knots during a round and find you've run out with 2 holes to play, you can borrow a ball off another player as long as you're not playing in a top level pro tournament or amateur tournament. Which
you're probably not if you're needing to borrow golf balls from your fellow competitors.
No, and even then, there is a slim chance that the person you're playing with might be playing exactly the same model as you. But generally, you can play whatever ball you like from one hole to the next in club golf.
Good advice there. The next one is a similar one relating to golf balls. And in particular, we're talking about golf balls that are stamped with the word practice on them.
Yeah. Well, the R&A website says this. In most cases, practice balls are simply listed conforming golf balls that have been stamped practice in the same way that golf balls often feature a club or company logo. So such balls may be used even when the committee has adopted the condition that the ball the player plays must be on the list of conforming golf balls. We won't go into that too much, but it essentially means just having practice stamped on the ball doesn't mean it doesn't conform.
Okay. The next one is about identifying your golf ball.
Yeah.
So let's say I've smashed one into some heavy, thick rough, and I've not put an identification mark on my ball. So I'm playing a Titleist Pro V1.
Yeah.
A pretty popular make and model. And I've hit my ball into the rough down the right-hand side of the hole. What do I do in that scenario?
Well, I think some people would maybe get a bit pedantic about it and say, if you haven't got an identification mark on it, even if we find one of the same make and model number, that's not good enough. You can't 100% prove it's yours. But the rules of golf actually take a slightly different view of it. But you won't find this in the Players Edition, which we all have in our bags, hopefully, or at home.
The smaller book.
Yeah, you'll only find this in the full version. And this actually says, I'll read it out because I won't be able to remember otherwise. By finding a ball with the same brand, model number and condition as the player's ball in an area where the player's ball is expected to be, that is acceptable. So basically, if you've played a Pro V1 7 that's got one little scuff on it and you find one, same number with a little scuff on it, then the rules would say that is good enough. The only clause is unless there is good reason to believe that another ball in exactly the same condition and with the same number and brand is in the same area. Now, I'm not sure when that might occur. I suppose if there's holes going back and forth and some other player arrives and says, oh, yes, I'm looking for a Pro V1 7, then you might run into a spot of bother. But I think that's such a niche scenario as to not get too hard about it.
The next one is definitely what I would not have known this until a few weeks ago, when, again, this cropped up during filming when we were talking about it. I would always say I'm going to play a provisional whenever I need to play a provisional because that's what I thought the rule said. But actually, you don't need to be quite as clear as that.
You don't. The rules recommend, they say it is best if the player uses the word provisional, but it's not an absolute requirement. And I would have thought, I didn't think you had to definitely say provisional. You had the option to say I'm proceeding under the provisional ball rule or whatever. I don't think anybody would ever quote the rule at you when they're doing that. But the rules actually just say you need to clearly indicate that you're playing a provisional ball. And when you go into the interpretations on the rules, phrases such as I'm going to play another just in case are deemed to be acceptable. So anything that implies some doubt that you're going to find the original. If you just say I'm going to play another, I'm going to reload, then that is not good enough.
Yes. Okay. Now, the next one, I think people will be surprised by. Let's say I shoot a round of 72 and I put all my scores on the card. We put all my scores were on the card correctly, but I actually signed for a 70. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, you're fine. I mean, you're not very good at maths, but you're fine. You can. Well, the only requirement for the player, the only thing they're signing for that their marker has written down for them is the gross score on each individual hole. That's the only thing that matters on the scorecard. In terms of the scores, there are other things you have to make sure you've put in there, like handicap, and that is signed by both marker and the player. No maths is required. If you get the maths wrong, it doesn't matter. You don't have to put Stableford points down. That should all be done automatically for you. Obviously, most people do that, I would say, probably. But there is only one thing you're signing for, and that's 18 individual score holes. I mean, you've got to be a bit careful. I think Eddie Pepperell ran into a bit of bother earlier this year where he looked at the scorecard and the score was correct, in terms of the total. It was 72 or whatever. But the marker had written two of the scores the wrong way around somewhere. So he was actually signing for a score lower than he'd taken on one hole and was therefore disqualified, even though at first glance the maths on the scorecard was correct, but the maths is irrelevant.
Oh, that's just painful, isn't it? That's a really tough one to take, I would think. Right, so our number 2 on our list, Jez, is, let's say we're playing in a competition. It's the club championship, and I'm, focused in the zone. I would often say, stood on the first tee, just before I tee off, I'm playing a Titleist 1.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that. You don't have to say I'm playing a Titleist 1 with 2 green dots or whatever. You don't have to tell anybody what ball you're playing. But of course, most people do, and I think it's wise to, although obviously not essential, because first time you lose your ball, that other player has some idea of what he's looking for. I think we've probably all played at times with people who, lose a ball and you find one and you say, "Are you playing a Titleist 7 or whatever?" And they say, "Yes," and you're thinking, "Oh, not 100%." Well, I play with people like that occasionally.
Yeah.
It obviously clears up any confusion if you can remember what they've said on the first tee. But under the rules of golf, there's no obligation to tell anybody what ball you're playing.
And that leads us on to number 1 on our list, what we think is the biggest myth among golfers, Jez. And that's the difference between nearest point of relief and nicest point of relief.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is a big misunderstanding, I think, is that when you're taking relief, so you're on a cart path or you're on there's some temporary water and you're getting free relief from that. A lot of people confuse that to mean that you're entitled to a perfect lie and a perfect line. But in fact, all it means is you're getting relief from the condition that you're taking relief from at the nearest point where you're able to take relief. And that is only one point, and you then get the club length from that if it's free relief. But that might be in a bush. You might be on a path and your ball is on the left of the path, and right up against the path is a bush. Well, you don't get relief from bushes in the rules of golf. So your nearest point of relief from the condition you're taking relief from is in the bush. So then you might have to think about whether you're going to choose to play it instead from the path, depending how much damage it's going to do to your club.
There's no such thing as a choice in this scenario, is there?
No.
And the other thing to point out is that when if let's say you want to take a penalty drop away from your nearest point of relief, you have to take that penalty drop from, in this instance, the bush that you're talking about, don't you? You don't take the penalty drop from the spot that the ball was lying on the path.
No, you would take relief from the condition, and then if you don't like where you are, then you have to take a penalty unplayable drop.
Okay, Jez, well, thank you for that. That's hopefully cleared up some of the biggest rules of golf myths.
Yes, hope so. The key one is nearest, not nicest point, and I would say that is the most commonly misinterpreted rule that I am aware of when I play with people.
Okay, so that's our list of 10 common golf rules myths, all things that golfers, even golfers who've played the game for a very long time, can get confused with and get mixed up with, that we thought were well worth knowing. Guys, please do hit the pause button and let us know if you think there's anything we've missed. We would be really interested to hear if you see things while you're out on the golf course that people are getting wrong. And I think it's worth sharing that information around here so that people can gain as much knowledge about the rules as possible, because the more you know about the rules, ultimately, the better protected you'll be when you go to compete, go to try to get your handicap down in the future. Guys, thank you very much for watching. The last thing I'll say is, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the Golf Monthly channel. That way you won't miss any of our rules videos or any of our equipment or instruction videos either. And also, if you have enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button. But for now, stay safe. We'll see you next time.